from Tesla, they're having to use all their parts to manufacture all their cars. They don't have a surplus of parts to sell because they're all right now they're in such a tight, all these other car manufacturers, auto manufacturers have a surplus of parts because they sell them to auto parts stores and all this other place and for service. But Tesla's just trying to get cars built. They're not thinking about the service. And so this guy's having to go down to all these junkyards where all these Teslas are, which I didn't know there was that many wrecked Teslas. There's a lot of wrecked Teslas. There's giant fields of wrecked Teslas. And I thought, they tell in the news like 3 or 4 cars. Now, wow, there's only 3 or 4 cars. And here's this guy finding whole acres of Teslas that have been wrecked. And nobody says anything about that. Anyway, so they're all going against this individual finding these flaws. Just like individuals finding flaws in manufacturing where the manufacturers say they have a recall on something that's killed 20, 30, 40, 100, who knows how many. The government steps in and says, okay, you've killed 200 people. We have to say something to you, Mr. Manufacturer, even though you're $1 billion a year business and you pay your taxes and you employ all these people. We're going to have to say something now because you've killed 200 people. So we got to kind of step in and we got to say something to you. So just be careful. You're going to have to recall, or I don't know how they go about recall. The government steps in and says you have to recall. But that this manufacturing, because they, even retooling, when they talk about retooling, a lot of these manufacturers, they got a form that they're stamping, say a fender, where they stamp a fender, which I think all these, to get rid of a metal, steel, and all this stuff is a non-renewable resource. You can't just continue to dig into the earth and pick up steel until the earth is just a ball of dirt and dust, or you're going 6 miles down to pull more steel out of the ground. It's a non-renewable resource. It's not like trees where you can regrow trees. So you have this non-renewable resource, and they're using it for like say pickups. I've been thinking, wow, wouldn't it be nice? You see all these pickups with these bent tailgates. You see guys in construction where they got their body, whatever stuff has run into them, equipment, or, whatever is maybe a pallet's fallen over onto their side of their pickup because they parked too close to some product that's been sitting out and it fell over and it smashed the side of the pickup. These are all plastic. I'm just thinking, you see all the construction pickups with all these dents in them. If you go to an area where there's a lot of construction, or bigger, and you'll see all these pickups, brand new pickups, and they'll have a dent here, or these people that they have tailgates that are hit. A lot of them they're boaters, and they drop their tailgate to see where to back up to the tongue instead of getting those little flags for the ball and the tongue. They'd cost maybe $10-15 for a dual set of flags so you can line up to back up to a trailer. They're magnetic. You put one on the ball, one on the hitch of the trailer, and you back right up to, you'll align the two flags. Well, a lot of people don't want to buy them. They don't sell them. They don't know about them. So they'll drop the tailgate back up, and they'll run a dent. They'll hit the freaking trailer, and they'll put a dent in a lot of places with a lot of boats. You'll see dents in the thing. Why are manufacturers, why they put Saturn out of business? There must be something in the manufacture or the buying and selling of steel. Now, I understand the steel. There's always places where steel can be used in other places besides vehicles where it's rust. They're using, they use a steel frame in buildings now so that you could, instead of using this steel in body panels on pickups and cars, Saturn had a great idea where they had the plastic. It punctures in, punctures out, boom. It might leave a scratch or something like that, but the integrity, the outside, it doesn't rust. It does not rust. So you're not losing a non-renewable resource to rust. Where if you have it in the frame of a house, termites can't get to it. It doesn't. Termites aren't attracted to it because if you can only use the sole to run along is what are those boards? Press board, not press. The green, treated lumber for your sole plate and stuff of a house, and you can't use it on the first. You should, even though it supposedly gives off fumes and stuff. You got 2x4s. You keep from all these areas where termites are at. You think they either use that the boards. I just said it. The green boards. What do they call them? Treated lumber. They could use the steel or the aluminum for the framework in these in houses and stuff, instead of using lumber to get rid. And you get rid of all that termite. Boom, you have a large termite area. You're using the steel in there that you used to use in all the body panels, and you're still using the steel, but you're at least saving the steel instead of having it out there in the rust where you come up here in the north where all they use is freaking salt on the road. I know I'm getting way off subject here, but it's just the process. These nobody changes anything because we have to retool and it costs so much money, and then they charge everybody else. It's just like everybody for a better idea, which is going to make them money in the process. They charge an individual, the workers who are having to buy the products that they can't afford to buy the products where they work at, $50,000 pickups, where there was a guy that back in the early 70s, no, it might have been late 60s, early 70s. I don't think it was fuel injection. It might have had something to do with, I know Porsche came out with fuel injection in like a 70, they've had it around for a long time, but for autos there was something that they was going to revolutionize back in 70 or 64, 65, where they had a fuel injection system. This guy was supposed to revolutionize the fuel injection market, and he was going to make a bunch of money, but he made it so you can't tune it. He made it so, we're going to make a lot of, they all have these little glitches in their way to scheme to make money, that you have to buy this product instead of having a product just stuff that's interchangeable. They have stuff that's interchangeable, but they take the worst of the product and they interchange it instead of the best of the product and interchange it, because they think, this is the best product. But if you mass manufacture the best of the product and not have that cheap stuff, you're going to up your quality, lessen your machines that are you're going to have to swap in between. Instead of going to the cheaper side, you go to the better side, and it's these freaking and these people believe it. They don't have anything to do with manufacturing process. Instead of making they think, they're making a better product and it's going to cost some more. So they just automatically agree with the stupidity of the manufacturer charging you more for something. Instead of having two different machining processes, they drop it down to one, which cuts out having to have two different things to switch in between. And they say, they should go to the cheaper. And so they go to the cheaper product and they make a junkier product. And that's the reason we're turning into a third world country, because of the stupidity of people that agree with nothing that they don't know anything about, and they get the mass of people that don't know anything about the process. And there's a couple guys saying, but they're individual and they're being squelched away from the populace, except for maybe somebody that's heard about it, and they said, the company sends in, they've heard this guy over here that's being squelched, so the corporation send this guy in that don't say they're part of the corporation, use some of this guy's story that somebody's heard this guy talking about, and so they send this guy in with part of the story to make it sound like the part is truth, but they don't actually change. They're the guy that comes in and says, we could do the more expensive, but it costs more because it's a more expensive product, instead of saying, well, it's not more expensive. It's just they want to charge more for it because it's not a cheaper. Say it's an A arm or something like that. It's stamped instead of a welded, where robot welding an A arm to a more precision, easier to anyway. It's sturdier, whatever, instead of the stamped steel, which has a lot of flex to it and changes the a lot of the handling capabilities compared to this welded form, which could be robotically welded, cheaper than this press. These are just tubes being welded together, where this is a piece of stamped steel, which is being pressed, and it doesn't really have the integrity of specifications and dimensions as these rods being welded together, say for an A-arm or something like that. And it'd be cheaper to do this, but they're saying, well, this is a more high quality product because it has better dimensional integrity, it's sturdier, and it's more adjustable, where this is just a piece of stamped steel and it's cheap, quick, we skip it out. And this thing can be built just as quick as this stamped steel. Because if you've ever been to any place that has stamped steel, you can see that two people are in there and they stamp it, and it's flexed, and they have to go through retooling with the stamping. That means that after they stamp so many of these pieces, it wears out the dies that they use to stamp this. It wears out because it's steel on steel, and this has to be a harder steel to stamp the steel, or if they use a cheap steel and they have to retool every time, because after it's stamped so much, it starts to wear the dimensional integrity. Say the first stampings are okay, but then after a while it starts to wear on the integrity of this die, and it throws this mold. The mold is less has a lot of wear on it, which means that the piece that they're stamping, the dimensions are changing, and like you get a lot of parts. They'll say that Wednesday's the best time, Monday, Friday parts. Well, it's probably a retooling process where the parts were worn out on the Monday. They see a lot of people don't want to work on Monday, and Friday they want to get home and they don't want to work because they're only thinking about the weekend. But a lot of times what it is this retooling. They're taking it to the first retooling. In fact, some of the stuff is made. I don't know if it's over dimension for when it'll last longer. It might be a little bit off when they first start stamping, but when it wears, the wear point will last longer on the die if they make it over dimension. And so the first ones out are not going to be perfect, but after it starts to wear, all that the pieces that are manufactured will be more specific to specifications, and so they'll get more parts that are closer to specifications until it starts to wear out and they have to change the die, however many pieces, what the they have certain limits to where the over limit and under limit of, just like pistons or something like that, the wear limits where you have to change them out. And so that's when they change out this die. It's when they get to these wear limits, and they can take it to the max and to the minimum. And so you got all these different pieces in this process. Whereas this robotic, they're saying it's a more it's constantly the same product, and it's better built, and it's cheaper, because if you're using an A-arm that just is using tube and it's got robotically welded, boom, and you send it out, compared to the stamped steel, because it's just stamping, and these robots are saying, and so they're saying, well, this is a more expensive product. But if you got rid of this stamp, all this retooling and all the time it takes to get retool, and all the process of wear, and all the send backs, to say if you get a part and it's it's the minimum maximum specs, and if it's minimum specs and you're like, wow, this is like that wore out real quick. A customer comes in and says, oh, that part wore out on me, and I don't know why it wore out. I don't know why it wore out either, says the mechanic. It's I never had a problem with that before. But they're getting the lot numbers of all these worn pieces are being sent to a city, and all these say, I don't know, sent to not here because I'm not going to mention my city, because they'll say, oh, he mentioned we could send a whole lot. And yeah, I've traveled around enough to know that there are certain areas of cities, say that they'll send a poorly quality control. You can see that in different areas of the country where these people might not be really say in flavor wise, or in if they're not real car aficionados, they don't do a lot of rebuilding their own places or their own things. They'll send to this area these parts. Maybe it might be automotive repair shops that are going to send back a lot of parts and say, hey, this part wore out too quick and we want better parts. And so they send better parts to this area. Whereas, say, a lot of do-it-yourselfers, they get it and they put it on their vehicle and they don't have the integrity of experience and expertise. Say this guy graduated and he's ASE certified and he wants to send back a part to the say it's NAP or whoever, and he says, hey, this part wore out of me too quick and I want a different part. Well, they'll say to this guy, yeah, okay, but you take a do-it-yourselfer who puts a part on, drives it around, it wears out quick, and he tries to take it back, or he's not going to try to take it back because he's already used his part. And or if he'll try to take it back, and he said, well, it wore out real quick, and he does, unless he looks up on the time limit, says, hey, this wore out too quick. I want manufacturers, and some of these people are like, well, 30-day manufacturer, and even is there a part on say a ball joint? Is there a manufacturer warranty on it? It's what, 30-day manufacturer? 1 year. You have it a year and a half, and the ball joint wears out, and you're like, wow, why'd that ball joint wear out so quick? So you take it in. Well, I'm sorry, you have a receipt. That's a year and a half ago. Well, we can't honor. Some places they'll say, okay, we've been having problems with that, and we'll honor that. But it's just that's how this country is. And there's all these little spider holes they're like pocket holes that allow large corporations to squeeze into these pocket holes and screw up everything to a large mass of people, where the populace doesn't, nowadays you have to have a doctorate and everything because of all these different places that are screwing everybody over in certain ways. And you have to know that, hey, this person is short. All these people are shortcutting. Instead of quality, this country has turned into a shortcut. They're like, how do we shortcut building this product? How do we shortcut building this house? Instead of the quality builds, if you go to Amish, you have Amish build your house, are they going to shortcut? You think they're going to come in and say, hey, we're going to shortcut this house? I don't know. I don't know how the Amish are, but I've seen their houses and they look straighter when you look at them than a lot of these manufactured houses. You look at them and you look, wow, that looks like a good build. And you drive around to these places that have all these other people building. I'm not saying who. I'm not saying they're immigrants or anything. Building, and you look at them, they just, there's certain ways to hammer a nail. There's certain, if you hammer a nail into a stud, and that is not done properly in a lot of these places where they're, if they're building a frame, you have to, a certain kind of nail, certain kind of stud, and certain kind of nailing procedure, which isn't done because of the nail gun manufacturer doesn't want to, they don't build the gun to where it can be tilted or fit into a certain area. You'll have to buy 2 or 3 of their guns and wear 2 or 3 of their guns instead of having one that does the job of all 3, where they can fit into a certain area. I'm just saying this is just a example. I'm not saying that that's how it is. I'm just just first thing that flashed in my mind was maybe, I've seen nailing processes on 2x4s and stuff, and or even nailing process on a say a lot of people get their shingles done, and the nailing process in certain areas, you have to have 6 nails in your shingles in the tar line. Now, there's people that say they can go above the tar line because then if you have the nail in the tar line, then that shingle above is not going to seal on that tar line, and where that nail's at in the tar line, it's not going to seal, and it's going to allow permeance of water coming up under there, and it's where those nails are at. Those nails, whether it's 4 or 6 nails, depending on what area you hurricane, you have to have like 6 nails, and then glues on the edges where the gables and stuff are. You have to have the edges glued down. And you come up here to the Midwest, and I've never seen. I don't think they glue down. Put it where the drip edge is. They don't glue the shingles down to the drip edge. Now, they might in certain places. There might be certain people, but not everybody does that, because the standards are not done by everybody. They might say we know the standards, but they don't do them, or we do the standards. They'll say we do the standards, but then the people they hire have qualifications. They've done a lot of they're experienced, and they'll say, well, to get this done, they might not do. They might know about it. They might know the company does it, because there's a lot like ISO 9001. The paperwork is all that's in order there, and that's all they care about. Now, the process, that's supposed to say that all the process, all the way through the labor line, is supposed to be done according to that paperwork, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the standards of the labor are up with the paperwork, and yet they're saying this ISO 9001 is quality work and all that stuff, and all it is paperwork. And there's no standards in this country. They have there's nobody keeping up standards, and the quality. That's the reason the quality is dropping, because you got all these freaking rich people that want to be rich in 5 years. They want to do everything cheap, fast. They'll flash out that